Okay. Okay. Good morning, all participants. Welcome to the day of Princess Kalayani Watana Institute of Music International 2022. Um, it's my pleasure for me to introduce our speaker for this morning, who is going to talk to us about perspective, nurturing global music citizens in undergraduate courses at Yong Conservatory of Music. This is a subject in which we should be interested because it's important for undergraduate music students to adapt in their music studies, especially because of the changing musical. Our speaker, Dr. Khoo Hui Ling, seeks and maintains diverse interests in life, which nourish her artistic soul, for she is at once a pianist, music educator, researcher, and entrepreneur. She believes that good music is sincere and vulnerable, an ideal she infuses into all her artistic endeavors. Dr. Abigail Sin is a prize-winning Singaporean pianist who has performed in venues across Asia, Europe, and North America as a concerto soloist, collaborative musician, and also solo recitalist. She is the co-founder of the More Than Music concert series, which has won acclaim for its engaging, innovative presentation of classical chamber music. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Khoo Hui Ling and Dr. Abigail Sin.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear us? Hey, good morning, Sawadika. Thank you so much for having us here to speak at the symposium. My name is Abigail, and this is my colleague, Dr. Khoo Hui Ling, and we come from the Conservatory of Music in Singapore. The project that we would like to share with you today is entitled More Than Perspectives, Nurturing Global Music Citizens in Undergraduate Music Courses at the Conservatory. So a little bit of background about Yong was started in 2003. We are currently celebrating our 20th anniversary as an institution. Since 2017, Yong has undergone significant institutional developments, moving intentionally towards greater inclusivity and cultivating global perspectives in our undergraduate curriculum. However, this has resulted in challenges among the student population and for faculty designing and delivering this curriculum. My colleague, Dr. Khoo, and I undertook this study in the 2021-2022 academic year that's just concluded in July. We aim to study these changes and the impact that the changes have had on the students. In the process of our study, we have interviewed students to better understand their aspirations and perspectives, specifically with regards to the core compulsory modules that Dr. Khoo and I teach. We will share the link to our interview questions later in the Zoom chat. So one of the key institutional changes at Yong has been the introduction of new non-performance-centric majors. These are audio arts and sciences, music and society, and music collaboration and production. These majors tend to attract students with experiences, professional aspirations, and networks from beyond the Western classical tradition. On the next slide, we'll see that Yong student recruitment and student population has also shifted accordingly. The number of students enrolled in these non-performance-centric majors have increased with each successive cohort. These changes have led Dr. Khoo and I to examine how we are reframing our compulsory core modules to meet the needs of the new first and second year students. So for me, I currently teach a module called MUH1101, Foundations of Musical Discovery. This is a compulsory one semester module for first year students. It's kind of like an introduction to music history to prepare the students to take other electives in the conservatory as they progress in their degree. It still takes Western classical music as a primary starting point, but it's not a chronological survey course. The module aims to provide students with skills and methods to begin examining music making in relation to broader social, historical, and artistic contexts. We explore topics such as relationships between music makers and patrons, instrument makers, and we also introduce ideas such as nationalism and romanticism. We discuss how these concepts can be observed and applied in the students' own music making activities and personal networks.
The modules I teach are professional development modules, which are compulsory for year 1 and year 2 students. Year 1s take profession of music. It's a year-long course that exposes students to different facets and possibilities pertaining to a career in music. The course is broken up into 5 themes. It starts off with musician wellness, and then it goes on into performance roots, arts administration, and in the second semester, students explore marketing and production as the 4th theme, and finally, community engagement. Students also maintain personal reflective blogs, which eventually expand into their own professional websites. And all this is to encourage further exploration of students' own unique musical identities. In the second year, students take leading and guiding, which is also a year-long course. In the first semester, they design a performance or educational music project for our community, and in doing so, pick up skills such as leadership, communication, and negotiation, identifying target audiences and their needs, crafting persuasive project proposals. In the second semester, they carry out the project under the mentorship of artist fellows in the Yong Conservatory of Music, with relevant expertise and support from local arts organizations. So now that you have a better understanding of the background of YST as well as our project, we'd like to share the results of the student interviews conducted in our study. One of our main questions was, how can understanding students' perspectives help us meet students where they are in our teaching? And we found that student responses can be broken down into 3 main categories, and they are adopting mindsets, developing skills, as well as establishing identity. Now, with regards to adopting broader mindsets, we found that students sought to break free of stereotypes such as genre and musical upbringing, as can be seen from this quote on the screen. I have observed that students who successfully adopt broader mindsets go on to explore diverse pathways that open up a variety of opportunities for them even before graduation, as well as after. This is an advantage to these students, as today, many go on to pursue portfolio careers. Other students interviewed also noted the importance of being well informed so as to be able to relate their musical studies with other fields of art or disciplines. They believed that this would help them find inspiring connections between the world around them and their artistry.
So in our interviews, we asked our students for feedback on how our respective modules support their aspirations, as well as areas for improvement, which we will discuss later on. So for my module, Foundations of Musical Discovery, students are encouraged to think critically and examine their respective music-making activities by engaging with different points of view. This might involve discussing different kinds of performances and written sources together as a class. As you can see from the quote on the left, developing a sense of curiosity and open-mindedness was certainly a key goal for these students. It is important that students feel that their individual opinions are valued as part of the larger constructive discussion. For example, I try to extend open-ended invitations to students to explain a concept related to their instrument or their field of expertise to the rest of the class.
In the professional development modules, exposure to different musical journeys by bringing in industry experts to have dialogues with students is really important. We find these practicing artists in our local community. We also source out artists prominent in the region through the CEDAM 30 under 30 project, which you will see in the next presentation, and through inter-institutional collaboration, such as with PGVIM in Thailand. Now, the next observation we've observed is that students want to develop skills. And by skills, we mean soft skills such as leadership, communication, and digital fluency, as you can see from this quote. And these are skills that we've come to term 21st century skills for musicians. And these 21st century skills for musicians create opportunities, help artists create their own opportunities, as well as manage and sustain their own artistic careers.
So in terms of how we are equipping students with these skills, in MUH 1101, there is an emphasis on critical thinking, writing, and presentation skills that students can continue to build in their own respective journeys. So class activities are designed around specific skills, such as how to identify potential lines of inquiry or how to construct a coherent argument. As you can see from the quote on the left, the goal is to sow seeds for independent learning, reflection, and creative decision-making.
In the professional development modules, what I try to do is to create assignments that are hands-on and practical and are opportunities in themselves. So for example, leading and guiding projects broaden students' networks as they work with local arts organizations. And in the profession of music module, students work on their own professional websites, which they can use to build their digital presence. And as you can see from the quote, they found it to be useful. Now, the third category is establishing identity. Many students question the so what and why of professional music learning when many students find themselves smaller fish in a big pond at the start of their conservatory journey. It then becomes important for students to find their unique answers to the questions, who am I as a person and musician, and how they relate to the world around them. This is reflected in this particular quote, in which the student interviewed tries to seek her own unique identity through interdisciplinary collaboration.
So for the first year history module, one key adjustment that I made to better acknowledge these diverse identities of the students was to create modes of assessment that acknowledge and embrace the diversity of artistic identities within the student population. For example, students have a few different options for their independent final projects at the end of the module. They can write a final paper about a musical work that they can choose from any genre, or they can produce a creative output that connects class concepts to their own creative interests, along with a written commentary. These projects have included remixes, recompositions, and even visual art.
And what I've tried to do in my professional development module is to encourage reflective learning. And I do this through encouraging students to upkeep their blocks, and with the help of guiding questions, students regularly reflect on how their musical identity is morphing as they gain more learning experiences in YST, as can be seen on the quote on the right. Now, it does seem that we are painting a very rosy picture and that everything we are doing is working out, but that's not always the case. There are contradictions which result in challenges which will be explored more in this particular section.
So it might seem that our modules are steering our students towards non-performance centric pathways, but it's important to highlight that all of the students interviewed express aspirations to pursue careers as performing musicians. Many of them want to have professional experiences outside of Singapore or their home countries, and they want to be equipped for their professional future. So in our interviews with the students, we identified several challenges that have arisen from the recent institutional changes. And we would like to discuss two particular types of challenges in our presentation today. Firstly, the increased diversity in the student population has led to more entrenched silos, particularly with regards to musical genre, musical backgrounds, language, and nationality. Secondly, the diversity of student needs and capabilities within the same classroom have led to struggles in power dynamics and student agency. So let's talk about some of these entrenched silos. One of the key issues is that students from different musical backgrounds seem to lack a common vocabulary to even start communicating with each other. As we can see in the second quote on this slide, the Western classical students often don't feel the need to, or they don't even have the personal desire to learn the vocabulary of someone from a different musical background. This gets even more pronounced when it comes to mandated group activities in classes. The third quote highlights the chasm in the students' thinking about what it means to make music in their respective genres. Because they view their goals and methods as so different, that chasm is sometimes very difficult to bridge. On the next slide, you see in these quotes that there's also an entrenched mindset, especially amongst the Western classical students, about how they should be spending their time and efforts at school. For most of them, that would mean practicing and pursuing excellence in their performance pathways. One student, whose quote we will use on a later slide, stated outright that learning about different genres of music was not useful for him. While most of the Western classical students strive to be excellent performers, the quote in the lower right-hand corner of this slide shows that, ironically, they do not always recognize the technical rigor and musicianship of their non-Western classical classmates.
Well, another issue that we identified, as mentioned just now, was the barrier of nationality as well as language. And as you can see from the quote on this slide, the student has pointed out that there are language barriers and cultural barriers between students from different nationalities. However, I have noticed that going beyond what the student has observed, students from different countries experience vastly different educational systems of varying rigor. In some countries, students are offered professional and specialized musical training since young. And in the same classroom, we have students who may have been self-taught for most part of their musical journey prior to coming to the conservatory. And so this actually results in the next issue, which is students with different needs within the same classroom, leading to issues in power dynamics. As a teacher, it is hard to accommodate such a large spectrum of student needs and capabilities in the same classroom. And for me, one classroom is about 60 students, which is an entire cohort. On the whole, I think we accommodate a majority of 50% who are on board with moving towards a more global perspective in the curriculum. This is reflected by the quote on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. However, around 10% feel it is too easy, as can be seen through the quote on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen here. And about 40% can't understand or see the relevance, as can be seen from the quotes on the upper part of the screen. Now, this is a huge issue because this means that a good 50% of students are constantly disengaged and therefore would feel that they are made to do the course instead of wanting to do it. This is a challenge for me because I'd like students to take agency over their learning, particularly in courses that deal with students' own professional development.
So this is very much a work in progress, and we are definitely still looking for concrete, actionable solutions as individual teachers and also as a school. We continue to discuss and work through these issues with the rest of the teaching team at Yong. We would also love to hear your suggestions and feedback at the end of this presentation. For now, we would like to highlight two possible areas of improvement. One thing that I think we could work on is to have a discussion that does not place Western classical perspectives as a default neutral ground. This may involve not using Western classical exemplars as the only or default means of expressing or explaining class concepts. For example, there was a student who asked why we had to learn about secondary dominance using Beethoven. Why couldn't we learn about secondary dominance using pop music or Bruno Mars, things that they might be listening to. The student interviews also reviewed calls to see music from different cultures and genres, examined and taught with the same rigor accorded to Western classical traditions. There are already electives that students can take at Yong that begin to do this, but students want to see more of that. Another area for improvement is to have diversity in faculty representation to better deliver the above perspectives. This involves recognizing the limitations of current YST faculty. If the school is serious about fostering global perspectives in our curriculum, then it is crucial that we have people with the relevant expertise and industry experience on board. It is critical that students with diverse backgrounds and professional aspirations can identify with role models on the faculty instead of feeling uncatered for or unacknowledged.
And the next solution or possible solution would be to facilitate opportunities for collaboration and exchange of ideas between students from different musical and cultural backgrounds. And this can happen within the classroom as well as outside the classroom. Within the classroom, project groupings can intentionally be made to comprise a diverse mix of students from different nationalities. This will need to be skillfully facilitated and guided by faculty to be effective. Furthermore, we could also encourage peer support across different nationalities. Outside the classroom, mentoring student leaders in the student council, for example, towards generating activities that foster inclusivity across nationalities would also be really beneficial. And to overcome diverse needs and capabilities, I'm sorry, my slides are a bit slow. Okay. And as well as to overcome diverse needs and capabilities within the same classroom, certain core modules may do better with smaller class sections that cater to specific student learning needs at the beginning of the conservatory experience. For example, students who enter the conservatory with diverse musical experiences should not be grouped in the same section with students with solely soloistic or traditional performance experiences for professional integration classes. Even though the learning objectives are the same, but the delivery, pace, and tone of the classes will have to be different in order to engage more students. Perhaps these students can be grouped together at a later stage when the academic and exposure gap has been lessened. And so we've come to the end of our brainstorm today. We thank you for listening to us. Please feel free to reach out to us for further discussion. And since it's a brainstorm, we actually look forward to hearing your questions as well as your solutions to perhaps similar problems that you might face in your teaching as well. Thank you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you, so you might need to unmute.
Okay, now you can hear me already?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I have to start over again. So thank you very much. So Thank you. I think it's while I was listening, I think the key point is about diversity in the classroom, which is very interesting because as a teacher in Thailand, diversity is not a big issue for us because most Thai students have similar background. But I think it's very like a main point for university in Singapore, especially. But I really agree about how to teach our students to be able to think critically and also able to give opinions, especially for Thai students. When we ask for their opinions or a question, they would just sit silent, you know. So I think it's very important for our educators to really teach our students to be able to give their opinions and also respect other opinions. And I think I really like your research about, you try to find opportunities for students in the classroom to explore about many aspects in very different ways, like the career path also and the group project, so they can learn about others with their classmates. So thank you very much. Is there anyone have a question? Okay.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation, and it's very refreshing to us. Exactly like what Ajanta said. Just one question for you though. It might not be directly related to what you just presented, but I was just curious, how did Yong Xiao come up with the three majors? The music and society, audio and arts, engineer, and what were justifications and why were these three? Thank you.
Did you want to take the question, Abby?
I could start and please jump in,
Yeah.
I guess. So I don't think we are fully equipped to answer that question, but it's definitely in relation to evolving industry needs and how we see the growing music scene in Singapore. Audio arts and sciences, so it started off as recording arts, but essentially that was definitely a big need in the industry, and that was started much earlier. And then as Yong Xiu started to really examine what it meant to be a conservatory in Singapore, in Southeast Asia in the 21st century. This idea that we shouldn't just look on very narrow definition of what it means to be a musician. And so these new majors were created to give students with different kinds of outlooks and backgrounds and career aspirations to explore higher music education. Hui Ling, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, sure. So on top of also meeting industry needs, I think we also recognize that we were, generations of students were changing. In Singapore, when YSD started, SOTA did not exist. SOTA is a school of the arts, which is arts high school for students in Singapore. And so as YSD grew and matured, we started getting students from SOTA as well as students all around who were more exposed to the arts. And therefore, societies like, modules like music and society, as well as music collaboration and production, started to become way more relevant to these students as well. So on top of meeting industry needs, it was also catering to student interests as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one question for Ling and Abigail. Just wondering, how do you, especially with this course started in YST, how do you, the major instruments teacher or the other practices that already well known and established in the schools do they recognize the importance of this? Or how do you connect with them in order to sort of make sure that these communications, that the student won't fall into difficulties in having to choose one or the other? Thank you.
On my end, I feel like it needs a lot of faculty communication between different departments to realize that, faculty first need to be on board that students shouldn't need to choose one or another, but that they are actually, these two areas are supporting each other. At the end of the day, We want them to graduate as confident musicians who are well aware of the ecosystem, the musical ecosystem around them. So I think it needs first a whole load of faculty communication to realize that we are working towards a common outcome. And when faculty realize this, I think then it's easy to pass that spirit down to students, that it's not a case of choosing one over the other, but that they're able to connect the dots between both their major studies as well as their academic studies. This is an ongoing conversation that we have at YST, and it is still developing. And I'm happy to say that it's developing positively. Yeah. Abigail, did you want to jump in?
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just to add that some of the modules that we've discussed today are compulsory modules for first and second year students. So every student, regardless of their background or major, will be exposed to these concepts and these activities. They will all have to go out and lead a project in the community. They will all be talking about their professional activities and their media presence and things like that. So it is not an optional thing for some students and not required for other students. It's something that we believe that all students should be equipped with at Yong.
Yeah, another thing that I might just briefly add in, and what Abigail and I have found really fun in our teaching, is to link what goes on around in the school to our classes. So in that way, their performance activities are linked back to contextual studies as well as our professional development talks in our classes. Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds like heaven. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Okay, so I think it's time, right? Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Khoo Hui Ling and Dr. Abigail Sin for sharing your insights in this very
Thank you.
important topic. And I think we as an educators, we really have to prepare our students to be a global citizens. So thank you very much.